quererte olvidar.
Testing. Okay.
Won't touch it. Good morning. Good, okay. I just want to begin by welcoming everyone here and especially to begin by thanking everyone who's been involved in putting together today's service. We had many changes and need to make creative plans, and it really was a complete team effort, and I greatly appreciate it. I want to, before I go even further, just let you know that relatedly, the program that you have is rather a combination of the last service that I facilitated 2 weeks ago and the one we're having today. So mostly it's right, but there's a little bit of changes, so, you know, please embrace the spirit of spontaneity, and I will keep us on track. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the South Fork. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every being. We honor our interdependence with all life on this planet and the earth itself. We honor each person's search for truth and meaning, encourage peace, compassion, equity, and justice for all. We remember the Native Americans pushed off this land by European farmers, and we remember the people captured in Africa, brought in chains to work this land, and then released to a freedom haunted with terror and injustice. We are committed to healing the pain of our past and our present. In our actions outside of these walls, we help those in need, the homeless, the hungry, the marginalized, recognizing that the whole world is our neighbor, who we are called to love. Here in our worship together, the rituals we practice and the songs we sing elevate these commitments and bind us emotionally as a community. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, whatever your name for the sacred, you are very welcome to bring your full self here. I'm Anastasia Goknauer, and our speaker and soloist today is Adelaide Mestre. We are also joined by Steven Skoldberg. Our tech hosts today are Monica, Ken, and possibly Pam. Not on the camera, okay. Related to the tech support, please know that, as mentioned before, we have a smaller group than usual, so please forgive us if it's difficult to find the links or things feel a little different online than you're used to. If you are new, if you're a visitor, please feel free to introduce yourself. And also feel free to sign our guest book if you're a visitor on Zoom, and someone from the Care and Connection team will be in touch with you. Would anybody like to say hello for the first time this morning? Okay. So then, I'm going to begin by welcoming Adelaide Mestre. In addition to being a dear friend and member of this congregation, Adelaide is an actress, singer, writer, and solo show performer. She has written and performed several solo shows, including her award-winning musical memoir, Top Drawer, which she has performed locally at the Church and Bay Street Theater, and will be performing again in New York City on April 18th. She describes her work as a personal response to grief, which is the theme of our time together for the month of April. We are fortunate to enjoy her voice and presence this morning, both as a soloist and also through her generous sharing of a new work in progress. Adelaide chose the prelude and the postlude for our service and will now offer a translation of the lyrics for the song she just sang as I light our chalice this morning.
The song that I began with is called Sinti, which means without you. And it's a rough translation, but without you, I cannot live anymore. And to think that you will no longer be here. Without you, what can mean anything if that which makes me cry is far from me? Without you, there is no clemency in my pain. The hope of my love you take with you to the end. Without you, it is useless to live, like it is useless to want to forget you.
We will now sing the first hymn listed in your program. And actually, before we begin, we have one announcement before Patience goes to help with the childcare. Sorry. Actually,
Okay, these are the announcements for this Sunday. The board is working on the mission statement so that it reflects the goals of our community. That's number one. Number two is help, child care. Just volunteer to come down with our wonderful Kimmy to help when we have the little ones so that our wonderful Amy doesn't have to go down every Sunday because I'm not always here. And I will go down too, but we need some help. So please help. And the final thing is go to the Sign Up Genius, which is in the greeting and it must be in the bulletin because I haven't seen it, but go there. Is it? Okay. Did everybody get that? Monday's email? Okay. And let Anastasia know about any, that's Martha.
there's a new Arts and Aesthetics Committee. So if you like thinking about the space and making it beautiful, please see me and we can do it together.
Yes, and here, I love the screen over there covering up the chairs. It's been bugging me for a long time. So, thank you. Okay, that's my little piece. Okay.
Hello? Better? Okay. Hello? When you're up here, you'll just hold it in place. We're going to sing the first hymn. Please rise as you're able.
Stars by the sun.
And please join now in singing our children to childcare. The words of the hymn are in your, on your program. Thank you. So, again, I know it's slightly out of order, but today we're going to begin with the meditation and move directly into joys and concerns. So, I invite us to enter into a prayer.
Spirit of Life, 123. Yes.
I'm going to dare touch this. Okay, I think we're good. Okay. Can you hear me well? Yes. Okay. All right. On this topic of grief, it so happens that I'm writing a new show, and it's my response to losing my mother. So this new piece I'm writing right now, it's a work in progress. In fact, I just wrote this for my writing group the other day. It's called "Who Are You Now?" This section is very fresh. My show is titled for now called "Who Are You Now?" I open the show singing that famous song from Funny Girl, and go on to say that the song was in a list of ideas my mom had for a cabaret act, and also a possible title for an act in another list that I found in one of my mother's journals after she died. My mother was an opera singer cum cabaret performer, and she died 8 years ago. My daughter Lucia was born in January, and my mother died in December of that same year, 2 days after Christmas. And see, these are just a few things you need to know before I read this section. My mother loved Christmas. Every year she threw a huge Christmas caroling party. When I was little, all my mother's singer friends would come and they'd sing in these beautiful harmonies. After my mother died, I was tasked with going through all her things, and I found all these journals and all this writing, monologues and song lyrics and scenes and short stories. All my husbands went to Yale was one. And the idea of the show, the premise is that I'm doing this cabaret act that my mother never got to do. But I start to tell you the story of my mother and our relationship, which was very complicated. My mother spent the bulk of my childhood preoccupied with her search for love and romance, often neglecting and ignoring the needs of her children. My mother grew up in enormous privilege. She didn't inherit the money that she thought she was going to. Her grandfather was Marshall Field III, who was once dubbed the richest boy in the world. But he believed in primogeniture and left all of his money to his only son. And we sort of became the poor relations. And all of the women were unsuccessful at marrying money, and in fact, they married men who only lived on their money. Anyway, so here we are. My mom and I were in the ICU. She had been intubated for several days, and finally, the doctors are going to take the tube out of her trachea. Mom will be able to speak to me at last. I mean, I may have wished for her to die on many occasions, but since we'd arrived in the ER, the threat of losing her, it was becoming real. Seeing her there with a tube in her mouth to help her to breathe, I was feeling so much for her. And there was so much left unsaid between us, especially since my daughter was born. I'd been so angry at her. All I could see were the ways she failed me, all I never got from her. I can forgive anything, I swore to my therapist. I can. But that bitch, she owes me an apology. No, but really, some kind of acknowledgement, some admission. Otherwise, I feel like I'm crazy. Something along the lines of, it was bad. It was as bad as you remember, and I'm sorry, honey. No. She never would have used that term of endearment, no. But maybe just, I'm sorry. I love you. Forgive me. Now, sure, we'd never talked easily, but now here we were, and surely she was feeling what I was. Surely she'd be able to... Mom? She doesn't say anything. The doctors have only just removed the tube from her trachea. I'll give her a moment. Mom, is there anything you want to tell me? Not really. Okay, maybe she needs a minute. You almost died. I thought I'd never speak to you again. Isn't there something? No. Are you sure? Any last words? I mean, in case. Did she not understand this conversation right here could be our last? I've had a good life. I've made some mistakes. Here we go. She's going to apologize. The men. I could have done better in my choices in men. I liked her better intubated. That night in group therapy, why am I in the hospital with her day after day? It's not like she was ever there for me. My group members nodded empathetically. All I want is an apology. Is that too much to ask? Adelaide, what if you don't go to the hospital tomorrow? My therapist suggested. Take a break. The following day, I went back. Doctors said they were going to move her from the ICU to the step-down unit. She was doing better, sitting up in a chair, having conversations. I couldn't avoid it any longer. The end-of-life discussion. I was her health care proxy. She had a DNR, a do not resuscitate order. I knew that, but I never really understood the nuances. I didn't bother to, not until I had to. The conditions under which you prefer not to have your life saved by cardiopulmonary resuscitation need to be spelled out. Mom, your DNR means if you stop breathing or your heart stops, you won't be revived. Do you understand that? Is that what you want? No. So you want CPR, because right now you will not be resuscitated. Oh, no, yes, I do. There are risks. The doctors tell me CPR at the end of your life is likely to be unsuccessful. If they do compressions, Mom, they could crush your bones. No. So no CPR. End of life? She looked so confused. Yeah, Mom. But that doesn't make sense. How do you mean? I don't know. It doesn't feel like I'm dying. I knew she was. My daughter's intuition told me so, but none of the doctors were willing to say it. Is she dying? I'd ask. My brother was living in Southeast Asia. My hunch wasn't enough for him, not if he was going to fly 8,000 miles to say goodbye. But the most the doctors would concede, she's a very sick woman. But I have so much left to do, she said. I didn't understand what she meant. A couple of weeks later, she was released from the hospital to a rehabilitation center not far from my house. At least I didn't have to take the crosstown bus now. I could walk there. And Christmas was coming, her favorite holiday. The rehab center had a rec room with a crappy, out-of-tune, upright piano. I gathered some of Mom's friends and her beloved accompanist, Andy. If this was to be her last Christmas, we would have one last caroling party. Mom sat in a wheelchair, oxygen tank by her side, and a mask on her face. Instead of the glazed spiral-cut ham Mom always served, we ate ham sandwiches. The rehab didn't allow food. I snuck in what I could, and nurses looked the other way. And instead of mulled wine and Mom's legendary eggnog, we drank Martinelli's sparkling cider. But we sang, "Deck the halls with boughs of holly," like we always did. More or less. The first Noel, Mom occasionally lifting her mask to sing. And then my favorite, Silent Night. And now sitting across the table from my mom, Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin, mother and child. My mother, me, Lucia. Holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace. The next morning, I brought her sticky buns from Greenberg's Bakery, a family tradition. She was weak and could barely eat. And then, with her eyes closed, that's one detail I forgot to tell you, my mother always spoke or sang with her eyes closed. With eyes closed. Thank you, Addie. Thank you for everything you've done. I didn't go back the following day. I did need a break and to be with Lucia. It had been weeks. The next morning, I got a call from the nursing home. I collapsed to the floor. I cried for a moment and then pulled on my clothes and rushed to the rehab. There she was, her dead body. I stood beside her and took her hand. It was soft and yielded to mine. Not like the rigid hand I had always tried to hold walking down the street. And it all came flooding back, all of it. The love that had always been there between us, but got lost or obscured. It was always there, but I'd forgotten. Sleep in heavenly peace. And now I miss her. Ache for her, in fact. I always imagined relief and release when she was gone, freed from the burden of trying to get blood from a stone, or more precisely, love from a mother who couldn't give it. Why don't I feel liberated like I thought I would? I began going through her things. I'm not sure why, but I started with her lingerie. And then I started wearing her bras and underwear. Actually, right now. They were new and unused, I swear. And yes, I wanted to save money. I am cheap, but I needed to feel close to her. Needed her near me. But it was so confusing. There were days in that first year, Lucia was a toddler, I'd sit down on the floor to play with her, but then a heavy wave of grief would hit and I'd have to lie down, my cheek resting on the soft carpet. Lucia would crawl over to me, her little brown eyes staring into mine, but I couldn't even lift my head. How could I miss her this much? To this day, in the quiet hours of the morning, or more often in the middle of the night when I wake with a hot flash, a voice inside me calls out, "Mommy." I feel stranded in the world. My mother was my North Star, for better or worse. The anchor in my sky that helped me determine direction, even if it was away from her, which is often where I wanted to navigate. But all that's left of her is what she left. Antique furniture, leather books, silver miniatures, music scores, hundreds of them. And handbags, vintage designer ones and knockoffs from the street. Once her wheel of fortune had turned, I found them in her closet like Russian nesting dolls, giant fake leather purses filled with smaller fake leather purses and smaller ones, and so on. Oh, and $120,000 of outstanding debt. And all of these journals and short stories and original songs, monologues, scenes. What do I do with all of this? I'll stop there. Eventually, I'm going to do the cabaret act she never got to do, and that will be the next part of the show. Thank you.
Hymn 61, Lo, the Earth Awakes Again.
Thank you so much, Adelaide. That was beautiful. As we move into the offering, I wanted to invite us to try something maybe a little different, which is to appreciate that in addition to offering our financial support, we also could offer our warmth and welcome to each other. So if you don't know the people sitting around you, and even if you do, feel free to say hello or give them a hug, and we will also pass around the baskets. Thank you so much for the amazing music this morning to both of you. As we move into our closing, I want to let people know that if you're joining us in person, there'll be a coffee hour, and we invite you to stay. If you're on Zoom, thank you for joining us, and we'll leave the camera on for a while so that people can say hello to anybody who's joining virtually. If you are visiting, either way, please sign a guest book, and somebody from the Care and Connection team will reach out to say hello. I hope that you will join us next week. Reverend Kimberly will be back, and next week is Easter Sunday, which also means that today is Palm Sunday in that tradition, which I failed to mention, but I felt delighted to hear some songs that I sort of associate with Easter, so thank you for that, Stephen. It's a treat. So by way of closing, I thought I would share a favorite poem by Raymond Carver, a writer that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. This April not only is the theme for our congregation grief, but April is also Poetry Month, so it seemed fitting to share a poem. This is called Late Fragment. And did you get what you wanted from this life? Even so, I did. And what did you want? To call myself beloved, to feel myself beloved on the earth. Adelaide will extinguish the chalice as we together say these words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I just wanted to say a little something about the last song I'm going to sing. I used to more see it as a romantic ballad. How deep is the ocean? And then I had my daughter, and those of you with kids probably know the way kids do that, like, how much do I love you? No, I love you this much. No, I love you this much. I love you to the moon and back. I love you to infinity. I love you around the world. You know, it gets very creative. And so it just it had me see this song in a whole new way. How much do I love you? I'll tell you no lie. How deep is the ocean? How high is the sky? How many times a day do I think of you? How many roses are sprinkled with dew? How far would I travel to be where you are? How far is the journey from here to a star? And if I ever lost you, how much would I cry? How deep is the ocean?